as I get the
Yeah,
presentation.
so basically, I'm a digital marketer, been doing this for 10 years now. Before that, I was a web programmer, so web developer for 4 years, then joined digital marketing. Then started with an agency, doing work for different companies like NSSF and a bunch of other companies, NGOs, as well as New Times Rwanda. Then I moved to NBS as the head of digital, where I ran that from 2012 to 2016, pushing NBS to become the leading engaging brand, and it has been so for the past 8 years. Doesn't look like it's going anywhere. Then from that, I moved to Metropolitan Republic for 1 year, agency for banks like Stanbic, energy companies like Eskom and Vivo, and a couple of other brands. Then I moved to MTN. MTN was also a client while I was at Metropolitan, so I moved directly to the client for 2 years as a digital communications manager, building onto the work that's already been done by an amazing team. Then moved on to set up a digital training agency that I'm currently working with called Zen Digital Africa. And with that, we basically did training, master classes online as well as offline for digital marketers in Kampala, then moved to an agency called QG Search and Sachi, which is the Publicis Africa Group. For a year now, I'm back with Zen Digital as a strategy director. And that basically is it. So 10 years of running with digital and trying to push digital marketing in Uganda.
I'm just wondering, like, some of us just went digital like 5 years ago. You seem like you've been at this for a while.
Yeah, and even my career before. So
yeah.
Having been a computer scientist, I just went directly into web development. So then I switched from web development directly into digital marketing. So it was a huge shift for me.
Okay.
So just moving to the next slide. I think I've talked through the first slide, which is basically about me.
So we'll take about 10 minutes.
So my agency experience is 2 years, media experience is 4 years, telecom experience 2 years, consultant experience 2 years. So very quickly looking at internet usage across the world. In 2020, internet usage reached 4.5 billion. So this is about 60% of the world's population. World population is still about 7.4, if I remember correctly. In Africa, internet usage was about 526 million. So of the 1.2 billion Africans, nearly half, or more than half, nearly half are using the internet. So, or rather, sorry, not nearly half. It's about 39.3 who are using internet. And of that, some countries obviously are higher than others. You have countries like Kenya that are very internet savvy. Then you have others like Eritrea that are at 8% internet penetration. Uganda currently is around 30% internet penetration. So they vary from country to country. Africa on a whole in 2020, the first half grew by 12%, 9% globally. So as you can see, Africa is growing way faster than other continents when it comes to internet connectivity, entirely because for us it's just growing. But globally, online advertising spent was about 332 billion globally, Unfortunately, there are no stats like this on Africa, so we have to run on what on what the world is doing. But considering how we Africans are still how African businesses are still pretty cautious about advertising, I would think that would be a small bit of that 332 billion. But just for us to know, the growth in online spending dipped as opposed to the growth the growth in online spending 2020 dipped as opposed to the past 3 years. Past 3 years was growing by about 20% or 25%. This time around, it grew a small margin of about 3% or so. So just moving to the next slide. The reason why I'm saying this is just to give context to where we're going in the digital. The sources that we have are, So now looking at internet usage, where are people spending their time? So on a daily, people are spending about nearly 6.5 hours online daily. Of that, about 3 hours and 35 minutes is spent on social media. This is globally. And then 4 hours spent on email. Now for Africa, that I think would flip. We spend more time on social media, particularly for those not in the corporate world. So just next slide. So social media usage. Social media usage was about 4.1 billion users globally out of the 7 or so billion. That was starts of the first half of this year. It was an increase of about 8.9%. But Facebook Facebook in Africa alone grew to about 212 million. In Uganda, it grew by about 500,000 people, which was a 16% jump. Now, this is in the first half of 2020. Now, if you're to look at Uganda's growth, Uganda was growing by about 400,000 or so users per annum. So this shows 20% increase in the growth, entirely because during lockdown, for example, people who are using office internet now suddenly had to get internet connections at home. And a lot of people have actually moved online to do their work. They've been forced to learn how to use Zoom and all these channels that they can get to do their work. Just moving to the next slide. Now, how do we serve ads online? For starters, I would like to give a good review of a scheme. I'm one person who pushed for its use while as an agency. And an example, we had a campaign with a financial institution that was just trying it out just to test the waters, if I may say. And they gave us a budget of 1 million shillings. So 1 million Uganda shillings, I don't know is how much, about 25,000 Kenyan shillings or so. And we actually gave them leads. So when they closed the leads, in total, the leads closed ended up being about 30 million shillings. So they got 30 times what they put in lead generation, entirely because of how accurate a scheme was in targeting the target audience that we were looking for. So that's just an example for those of you who are still wondering whether to use a scheme or not. It's a pretty good targeting system. But what we look at when we look at other channels that we use for advertising, like Facebook and Google, first thing obviously is look at your demographics. So are you looking at male users, are you looking at female users? What's the age group that you're looking at? Then also like location, where they are. That's definitely also a huge thing, especially in Kampala, because for example, if I'm targeting people who are DE target audience, DEs live in a certain place in Kampala, A, Bs, for example, live in a certain place, the C1s and C2s live in a certain place. So I would want to know when I'm targeting, especially a campaign that is for specific or a specific income group, where I want to target them when they are at home, for example. So I have to target those specific areas. So if I'm targeting the affluent, I target the affluent areas, as opposed to just targeting the whole of Kampala, for example. And also in doing that, then you sort of cut out your ads. For example, if I'm advertising, let's say if I'm advertising to a CEO, during the day, he's definitely in his office in a specific area. The CEO is a certain age, for example. He has certain interests and behaviors, for example. So I'm going to target him with those metrics. And then I'm also going to target him with the time when I know he's in office. Then when he's not in office, I'm going to target him when he's at home. The reason why I do that is I don't want to spend my money on his security guard, for example, or his house help when he's in office, and my money is spent on his house help, for example, or my money is spent on a border guy, for example, who is also using the internet in the same area. So location is very important in you trying to zero down on the person that you're trying to get. Other things that we also look at in targeting, in serving ads, something that you can do on Facebook and using Facebook, obviously can use that also to target Instagram, and also on Google is using user data. So for example, with some of the financial institutions that we've worked with, the way you do it is you go and talk to their business intelligence department, and you ask them, okay, who exactly do you want to target? Let's say you want to give loans. So who is in the category of people who can access these loans? So they then say, okay, it is A, B, C, and D, 1,000 names or 10,000 names. So instead of just getting that data, hashing it out and uploading it to Facebook, we try to anonymize it so that we can reduce how much of the user data is exposed to Facebook, for example, or exposed to external platforms. So instead of me uploading the whole database, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out everything else except their phone numbers. And Facebook already knows your phone number, because if you have the Facebook app on your phone, it's already picked your phone number. If you've verified your profile in any form or way, it has both your phone number and your email. So Facebook already knows what your phone number is. So if I put a list of 100,000 phone numbers, for example, it can then link me directly to the profiles related to those phone numbers. So that way I can target people exactly using a database, a list that I upload. So for example, if I forget all the other, the demographics, the location and everything, I just target you by phone numbers. That means regardless of where you're in Uganda, only the people on that list will get my ad. So only the people on that list will be served, will be spent on using my ad money. So I will not waste money on people who are not within that target audience. So it's a very laser guided targeting methodology, if I can say. Now the beauty about doing that also is you can then do a lookalike. You can then do a lookalike audience. So if I put in a list of 100,000 and I've exhausted that 100,000, I can then ask for a lookalike audience. So Facebook goes to the 100,000 people, looks through all their behavior data, all their interests, what they like, which pages they like, all their interests, demographics, and everything of those 100,000 people. Then it gets me a list of people who are similar in everything that they do. So Facebook has AI, obviously, that is gathering data from all of us and then putting us in certain categories. So if I have my list, then it says, okay, this person is exactly like the people on your list. So you can then advertise to them. Then the last way is to to do remarketing. So basically, I put a piece of code on my Facebook page, and that on rather from my Facebook onto my website. That way, if somebody comes to my website, either from whichever channel, Google Ads or whatnot, if you come to my website and let's say I'm trying to sell to you a personal loan, but you're not interested in a personal loan. So you see that, but then you're on the side, you see, let's say, business financing. So you go to business financing and spend more time there and show more interest on that page. Then my Facebook pixel or my Google Analytics then tell me, okay, this person is more interested in this product as opposed to the one that you're advertising. Then if I have an ad for that specific product, I can then push my money there and then try and get either a lead or try and close you on that product as opposed to the one that my campaign originally brought you in. So that sort of remarketing then helps you optimize your advertising to push to clients. But it also helps to remind you of stuff that you forget. So in Uganda, we have Jumia, obviously, and Jumia being one of the biggest advertisers, people are always complaining. Jumia is following me everywhere I go. Everywhere I go, I see the same Jumia ad for, let's say, a pair of shoes that I looked at for too long. And that's entirely because of remarketing. So you look at a product, they decide, okay, you have interest in this product, let's push this product more to you. Okay, then can just move to the next slide. So ideally, before COVID, the user journey that people were taking was you wake up in the morning, take a shower, first thing you do is look at your social media, even before breakfast. Then from then you go to the gym, let's say. At the gym, you see a tent card for an ad. Then as you walk out the gym, let's say you pass by a place where you can get a smoothie. There's a smoothie sleeve with an ad on it. Let's say you have a morning meeting before going to work. So you buy a newspaper. So as you sit in the restaurant, you're reading a PR article or seeing a newspaper ad. Then as you're driving to office, you pass by a billboard, either a static billboard, digital billboard. Then as you're driving still to office, you're listening to radio. So you hear a radio tip or a radio ad. As you get to office, first thing you do is open your laptop and you're checking either your emails or a bunch of sites that are interesting to you, Financial Times or whatever, or the news. And then from there, you either see an ad or you see a promotional email. Then let's say you go to an event, you can pick up a brochure. Then when you head home, you sit down and watch TV as you are also on your phone. So this is an example of a user journey that was there before COVID. But what COVID has done is it's disrupted this user journey entirely, especially for people who are working at home. So people who are working at home, for example, so gyms are still closed or they were just recently opened. So that was also something that was totally cut out for advertising in general. So because gyms were closed, then people would stay home longer because I don't have to go to the gym. I'm just going to wake up, I have a meeting, let's say at 9, so then I get into a Zoom. So I spend more time on social. But also all these other advertising channels that were left to me before or that I was consuming before are suddenly cut out because I'm working from home. So I'm not seeing any PR articles, newspapers. I'm not seeing any newspapers. I'm not seeing any billboards. I'm now strictly digital. So because people are doing more digital, then our advertising has to also redo this entire user journey to match the activity. I think that we are seeing, if you could just move the next slide. Something that we're seeing post-lockdown, we did a survey for a campaign that we had in teaching people about Corona. So we had a campaign from April to, I think, July, teaching people about Corona. And when we're asking them where they got their information about coronavirus, you can see that the largest number or it's about 42% of money is not showing, was on social media. Then another huge metric is TV, then online publications. So you can see how newspapers were suddenly dropped to zero, 1.3%. Newspapers used to be a huge part for people to get information, particularly office workers and particularly in the government. But that now suddenly was slashed down. Radio also was slashed down. This was mainly in Kampala, CBD. So when people were doing a lot of radio in the car and whatnot, that was suddenly slashed down. Then you can see, for example, the Ministry of Health website was also pretty big. So you can see that online advertising was a huge metric for this COVID campaign. So it just shows you how significant online has become in this time when people are locked down. Now that was during the lockdown. Now post-lockdown in Uganda, if you can just move the next slide, nearly about 60% of people are still working from home. Weston, just help me with the next slide. Just continue scrolling through. So nearly about 60% of activity of people who are 25 to 65 is still within residential areas. So areas that would expect people to migrate during work time and then come to the CBD. So people are still working from home, about 60% of them. Then peak hours are much longer. So morning peak. So the morning peak used to be from about 7 to about 8:39. Now that is stretching all the way up to 11. The morning peak also, rather the evening peak was beginning around 5 p.m. all the way up to 10 p.m. Now starting about 3 p.m. and stretching more. So it means more people now are staying online longer. They're checking their phones more, or they're on social media more. So that peak going up, partly because we have so many more new users, but also because people are at home a lot more. Then viewership of video content also suddenly skyrocketed. It had been growing steadily, but now it grew within the first half, grew by 42%, which was a huge surprise for some of us. So obviously what that means for advertising is that now suddenly you have to invest more in video content. So just move to the next slide. So then how do we then advertise new more? So for starters, more video content is essential. Then we also, because people are set in their homes, we also need to give them more laid back content to match their laid back nature at home. So, that kind of person seated on their couch needs something that is more laid back, because suddenly the content is also being more laid back. People are doing a lot more funnier videos or whatnot. Obviously, now that has been interrupted in Uganda because of the election period. So that has been another disruption on top of the COVID disruption. But then also increasing more content marketing, because content has become a big part of what people are consuming. So more content marketing other than video content, and then rework the user journey to match the new normal. That kind of user journey that I showed you before needs to be changed suddenly. You have to do a user journey looking at the new peaks of when people are using digital, and also for the different categories of people. Because, for example, there's lots of people who are still going to the CBD to work. So when are they now suddenly using digital? Looking at things like curfews that we have. We have a crazy curfew that then causes a lot of traffic jams. So a lot of people who are going to the CBD are stuck in traffic until 10 p.m. or so. So that has to change the user journey as well. So I'm hoping all this then shows you what changing the user journey has done, has what the COVID pandemic has done into digital advertising. But it is essential for me to reiterate again, as I end, that tools that give you data like a Scheme is extremely essential. Doing this, the user journey and what using the direct advertising platforms like Facebook and Google. Scheme does that as well because it's part of their vendors, but also